waiting on pins and needles for me to get started right at 11 o'clock. And I missed it by a minute because I literally went to print my final draft and ran out of paper. As it goes sometimes. Welcome back to On Faith and Doubt. This is the second episode. Allow me to settle in. The second episode of my fourth show on this channel. Now, if you joined us at the first episode, that took place the final day of January. Today is the final day of February, so welcome back. We're going to keep this a thing. On or about the final day of the month, we're going to come up with a fireside chat where we discuss, I guess mainly I discuss, but you're welcome to join with your comments. You're welcome to join the discussion, but where I discuss the deeper questions in life. And basically, I'm just cheating. I'm using this as an opportunity that forces me to get my own worldview dialed and my own arguments sharpened and strengthen my pursuit of truth. Because I'm a fan of truth. I hate manipulative arguments, especially when people accuse you of being manipulative when you're literally trying to use logic and reason to get outside the emotional argument and get your point conveyed. I had one of those today, a little argument. However, last time we examined, it was more of an introduction to worldview. And I said that actually I'm going to talk about it on the paper, so we'll skip that part. But my goal over the year, since we're going to do 12 of these, we got January, February, so we got 12 of them. The goal is to, I don't really know. I don't really see an end point. I see a goal. The goal is to strengthen a worldview. But in order to do that, we first have to cross a few bridges, so to speak, on the road to the celestial city. If I'm not mistaken, that's from Pilgrim's Progress. So we are setting out on our journey. We're in the second stage of our journey, and let me know what you think. This one kind of builds off my other show, the last episode I did about certainty, but it is different in its own right, so stay with me. We'll read this, and then if there's any comments, we'll chat, and if there's any thoughts that pop into my head, I will discuss them. Otherwise, we'll end it for the night and get back to work or bed. So here we go. Essay number 2, show number 2, On Faith and Doubt, the deeper questions. A fireside chat. Title, The Seduction of Certainty. In the first episode, I began by introducing and understanding worldview. Not as a label, not as a hobby, but as the operating system foundational to one's life. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are already answering 4 questions. Origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Is there right and wrong? If so, why? And where do we end up? Those answers are not theoretical. They show up in how you treat people, what you fear, what you excuse, and what you're willing to sacrifice. Tonight, I want to move the conversation forward in a direction that may feel a little less comfortable. If worldview matters as much as I feel it does, why don't more people know about it? Build it, strengthen it, and or examine it. Why is it so rare to see someone calmly pull apart their own assumptions and inspect them without defensiveness? Matter of fact, have you ever seen anyone do that? Let me say it again. Pull apart their own assumptions, inspect them without getting defensive. Rarely do we see that. So that's one of our goals, to get down the road and to be in the place where we can always pull apart our assumptions and premises and inspect them and not get defensive. Okay? Got it? Good. So the easy answer to that is ignorance. Oh, no, wait. So why is it rare? Well, the easy answer is ignorance. The lazy answer is tribalism. The self-righteous answer is that other people are too shallow to think deeply like me. But those answers let us off the hook too quickly. The real reason is more unsettling. The real reason is that certainty feels good. And humans love to take the shortest path to feeling good. When someone speaks with unshakable confidence, when they explain the world in a simple moral line, this is right, this is wrong, these are good people, these are bad people, something in us relaxes. The complexity disappears. The ambiguity recedes and the anxiety softens. Certainty feels like solid ground. But feeling stable and being correct are not even close to the same thing. History has never lacked confident voices, but it has lacked careful, self-examining ones. Entire movements have marched forward under banners of absolute moral clarity, only to be revealed later as catastrophically mistaken. And yet each of those movements felt righteous at the time. That should disturb us more than it does. The most destabilizing question a person can ask, or should ask, is, what if I'm wrong about everything? That question is not destabilizing because it's absurd. It's destabilizing because it threatens your identity. If you follow your reasoning back far enough and discover that a foundational premise is weak, you don't simply adjust a minor opinion. You risk reevaluating everything, loyalties, narratives, and many parts of your own story. That can be psychologically expensive. It may cost you the comfort of being able, or of belonging to a group or a party. It may cost you the feeling of moral superiority. It may even cost you the illusion that you have already arrived at the truth and you have no further to go. So instead of truly examining our foundational beliefs, we reinforce the convenient ones. We'll defend a conclusion more fiercely than we examine our premises. We become fluent in rhetoric, framing, tone, emotional emphasis, fallacies, bias, and spin, while quietly neglecting the underlying assumptions doing the real work. Notice how often public arguments unfold this way. Someone challenges a claim. Instead of clarifying definitions, we escalate the argument. Instead of asking what would change our mind, we assign motives. Disagreement is interpreted not as error, but as malice. If I am certain and you oppose me, then you must be corrupt, foolish, or dangerous. That move feels strong, but it is not. It is a sign that a shaky certainty has fused with your identity. Once certainty becomes part of who you are, doubt no longer feels like intellectual curiosity. Doubt feels like betrayal. Questioning becomes treason. Humility is weakness. But here's the irony. A premature certainty is not strength. It's insulation. It protects you from the discomfort of the examination. It protects you from the anxiety of ambiguity, not knowing. It protects you from the possibility that you might have to change the way you think. The religious person is not immune to this. Faith can harden into denial if it refuses scrutiny. Am I not saying that right? Scrutiny. Being scrutinized. The skeptic is not immune to this either. Doubt can become its own form of dogma when it refuses to consider evidence that unsettles its assumptions. So both the religious and the skeptic person can't hide behind confident language. Both can weaponize rhetoric. Both can mistake applause for accuracy. Doubt in its healthiest form is not a personality trait. It's not cynicism. It's not the permanent suspension of belief. It's a tool. And like any tool, its value depends on how you use it. Doubt is what interprets. I did that again. Back up. Doubt is what interrupts a false certainty. It is the internal voice that asks, quietly but persistently, how do I know this? It forces definitions where there were slogans. It demands evidence where there were assumptions. It exposes contradictions that comfort would rather ignore. Without doubt, error hardens. But with doubt, error is exposed. But doubt is not meant to be a destination. It's an instrument. If you live inside doubt indefinitely, refusing to commit to anything, you do not become wise, you become weightless. A person who doubts everything believes nothing. And a person who believes nothing cannot build, cannot love, cannot sacrifice. So doubt has a purpose. It weakens that which is false. And if a belief survives honest doubt, if it endures questioning, scrutiny, and the pressure of counter-argument, it emerges stronger, not weaker. True certainty is not the absence of doubt. It is what remains after doubt has done its work. This is where faith and doubt meet. Faith is not the refusal to question. It's the willingness to act without total proof. Every human being lives by faith in that sense. Faith in reason, faith in moral institutions, faith in science, faith that tomorrow is worth facing. We commit long before we possess exhaustive certainty. Doubt keeps that faith from hardening into arrogance. And faith keeps doubt from dissolving into paralysis. Together they form something stable, a conviction with humility. And most of us, if we're honest, prefer belonging to solitude. So we adapt the tone of our community. We inherit its conclusions. We repeat its moral vocabulary. And because our circle of people affirm us, our certainty feels validated. But validation is not verification. If we are serious about faith and doubt, if we mean what we said about examining worldview rather than defending jerseys, teams, then we have to be willing to separate the feeling of certainty from the fact of truth. That does not mean we drift into endless skepticism. No one can live there. Action requires commitment. You cannot raise a family, build a life, or pursue justice while constantly suspending all judgment. But commitment without examination becomes fanaticism. And skepticism without commitment becomes paralysis. The alternative is harder and less glamorous. The alternative is disciplined confidence. A confidence that has walked through doubt rather than outrun it or run away from it. Faith that has survived questioning rather than silenced it. Convictions that are not terrified of being tested. If something is true, it can withstand scrutiny. If it collapses under honest examination, then the collapse is not the enemy. It's the correction, and the belief is not true. This is where the confrontation lies. You may feel certain about your deepest assumptions. You may feel settled. You may feel clear and assured. The question is not whether you feel certain. The question is whether your certainty has earned the right to guide your life. Because if it hasn't, then it is not good for you. It is only comforting to you. And comfort is a poor substitute for truth. The end. All right. Where do we head from here? You picking up what I'm putting down? Zero viewers and zero comments. Wonderful. Hey, you got to start somewhere, and this one's for me anyway. Just know that the last day of the month, we're going to come back and keep building on this. Forcing me to write these papers, of which I've done several that have to do with arguing politics. And that's kind of where the certainty one built off of. If you listen to the Eyes to See podcast or show or whatever we call it. Certainty is a big thing for me. I just love it when people are certain, and I am certain they are wrong. Because in my honest opinion, no one can be certain. As a matter of fact, since we're only 17 minutes in, I have, where would it be? Oh, I know what's that. I have a paper that I found. There it is right there. Finished essays, Eyes to See, Uncertainty, original. Okay. I guess I could read it off of the TV here. So I have two forms of this. One form I wrote on a piece of paper while I was working in a steel mill. I put it in a little file, and we read it in that episode. But then I rewrote it. And today I would like to take a minute and read that to you. Because it builds off of the seduction of certainty. I mean, in its simplest form, think about it. If you're walking around certain of everything, you got nothing to worry about, right? Unless you're wrong. And how many people do we know that are walking around certain of things that seem to be wrong? I think it's true, or it's important to go back to Socrates and understand that he knows, I don't remember the quote, but he basically has learned so much that he realizes he knows nothing. I don't know if that's the exact destination we want, but you definitely want to be the kind of person that walks around saying, wait, what if I think about this the opposite? What if I am wrong about that? What if I shouldn't be hating the Oklahoma City Thunder players? That was last night. Anyway, so let's read this. And we'll read off the screen. On certainty. Of what can a man be certain? The deepest thinkers in human history have wrestled with that question. And so have those of us who do not dare call ourselves deep thinkers. One thing I've noticed in my own life is this. Doubting one's certainty usually comes after a person feels quite certain. Doubt does not often begin the journey, it interrupts it. When I first began trying to think seriously, I held naive assumption. I believed that if I simply doubted everything, if I questioned every claim and suspended all confidence, then certainty would eventually emerge. I imagined skepticism as a kind of neutral starting line. I'm sure many learned scholars would remind me that entire traditions of philosophy were built in the fertile soil of skepticism. And that is true. But even skepticism is almost always a reaction. It is born in response to someone else's certainty. Skepticism is rarely primary. It's corrective. Consider the contemporary fundamentalist. He is the stereotypical image of a false certainty. We point to him easily. We laugh at him. We assure ourselves that we are not like that. Even the fundamentalist believes there are more fundamental people out there, more extreme, more rigid, more unreasonable than he is. But in one sense, we're all fundamentalists. I would propose that anyone who posts a truth claim is at least functionally a fundamentalist. The moment I say this is true, I have planted a flag. Even the relativists who insist that truth is relative to culture, circumstance, or individual perspective makes truth claims constantly. One of those claims being that there is no absolute truth. And that itself is an absolute claim. Contradiction. So perhaps we need a different starting point. Instead of debating which claims are correct, we might begin by examining our ability to make absolute claims at all. I think, therefore I am. That solution has already been offered. The thinking self as the foundation of certainty. If I doubt, I must exist to do the doubting. And yet that too has been found wanting. For those who are certain that thinking guarantees a stable existence, visit a mental hospital or examine your own mind at its weakest. Memory fails, identity fractures, perception distorts. The human mind is not a fortress of clarity. It is fragile. If we can accept the fragility of the human mind, we can begin to understand our finitude. We are finite creatures, limited, bounded by time and space, conditioned by experience, constrained by ignorance. It seems almost foreign that such creatures would confidently pursue absolute claims. It's as though the absolute were reserved for the infinite. Every time I claim absolute certainty, I elevate myself into a position of absolute authority. Do I not? The echo of Genesis 3:5 is hard to ignore. You will become like God. That's the serpent and Eve in the garden. The serpent talks to Eve and he's like, what did God tell you? Well, he said we could have everything we want, except not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because we will die. And he's like, surely you won't die, because God knows that you will become like him, knowing good and evil. Oh, is that a fact? Get it? Wanting to be like God is the root of human wrongness. Pride is not the root. Pride is the symptom. Pride keeps a person from accepting his or her finitude. Finitude, if you don't know that word, it's finite. The state of being finite. Condition of being finite. What is finite? It is limited. It is not infinite. Infinite is the opposite of finite. Got it? Good. That refusal then opens the door to absolute claims. So again, of what can we be certain? There's a well-known exchange between, I should have taken this out, philosophical giants Ludwig Wittgenstein and Karl Popper. The discussion turned on the certainty of simple statements. Popper emphasized falsifiability, and Wittgenstein countered with the simple claim, here is a hand. At one point, he proposed, for the sake of argument, here is a table. What does it mean to be certain of the hand or the table? When I say here is a table, I am confident within a limited frame. It is a table according to human categories. It is a table with this time and this space. It appears stable. It appears real. Within my experience, I can call that certainty. But it is a limited certainty. To be absolutely certain, a thing would need to be known in its entirety, not merely its immediate appearance, not merely its current form, its complete essence, its origin, its future, its past, its relation to everything else, and its full integration into reality. Well, that kind of certainty exceeds human capacity. Human understanding is finite. It is bound by time, bound by space, bound by perception, bound by the limits of language, cognition. A thing in its entirety exists beyond the grasp of a finite mind. If certainty requires total comprehension, then human certainty is necessarily, oh my God, start over. Actually, I'm going to back up so I can clip this because it needs to go together. Bear with me. But it is limited certainty. Okay, so we're going to start right here. And we're going to perform it well so we can clip it and put it in a short. Because that's the new thing. If you're not doing 3 million short views a year, you cannot even get monetized, apparently. Whatever. Okay, so let's start over. Blah, 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 blah. Now, to be absolutely certain, a thing would need to be known in its entirety. Not merely its appearance, not merely its current form. Its complete essence, its origin, its future, its relation to every other thing. Its full integration in reality. I have to do it again. It's like, I thought the part that came before it was even good. What does it mean to be certain of that? Need to do some more work on this. So maybe we're not going to clip this, but we'll continue. Its full integration into reality, that kind of certainty exceeds human capacity. Human understanding is finite. It is bound by time, bound by space, bound by perception, bound by the limits of language and cognition. A thing in its entirety exists beyond the grasp of a finite mind. If certainty requires total comprehension, then human certainty is necessarily a limited certainty. Absolute certainty would belong only to that which is absolute. Limited certainty holds many truths. It allows us to function. It allows us to build, to reason, to speak, but it remains limited. The full integration of certainty would require an infinite vantage point. God is infinite. God is. Absolute certainty can exist only in relation to the absolute. Let me say that one again. Absolute certainty can exist only in relation to that which is absolute. If there is one proposition that carries absolute certainty, it is this: God. God is. From that primary certainty, many other certainties may follow, but they are derivative. They are connected to the first principle and remain limited in scope and application. This argument is not, strictly speaking, an argument for the existence of God. It is an argument about the structure of certainty. It shows that human certainty is limited by definition. And if full certainty is possible at all, it must belong to the infinite. If a human being claims full certainty, then either he is mistaken about his finitude, or he is placing himself in the position of the absolute, being like God. Does this mean that other truths do not exist? By no means. Of course, truths exist. I am almost certain they do. But to appoint myself the final judge and proclaimer of them in absolute terms is to step onto dangerous ground. Is this then a manifesto for relativism? By no means. I'll send this to my friend. I'm trying to remember his name. Alfredo? We used to listen. We were working construction. And he was a Bible thumper. And he motivated me to listen to, that was back when the Bible was like literally being what's the word? Published as audiobook. It was before Audible, but it was like, or no, I think it might have been Audible. Or you could just get the Bible. And this guy that read it, he would always say in the English Standard Version, ESV, by no means. Over and over again, we'd listen and it was a joke. By no means. Does this mean that other truths do not exist? By no means. Of course truths exist. I'm almost certain they do, but to appoint myself the final judge and proclaimer of them is, in absolute terms, is to step onto dangerous ground. Is this then a manifesto for relativism? No, relativism dissolves truth. Fundamentalism freezes it in human hands. Oh, that's where I need to add by no means. Is this then a manifesto for relativism? By no means. I did it. I wrote no, but I threw that in there. Actually, just let me type it right now. Stand by. Whoa, what are we doing? Oh, this is a freaking PDF. Doggy dog. Now I lost my place. Okay, can't type on it. Relativism dissolves truth. Fundamentalism freezes it in human hands. Both assume too much. One assumes that no absolute exists. The other assumes that it has captured it. What if there were a different posture? A people who form convictions carefully, who hold them seriously, who act upon them responsibly, and yet who continuously season those convictions with doubt. Not paralyzing doubt, but humbling doubt. A recognition of finitude. Farmers of truth rather than owners of it. Workers in the field rather than the occupants of God's throne. People who pull the weeds of deception and fend off the varmints of lies, but who remember that the field is not theirs to command absolutely. Perhaps certainty in human hands was never meant to be absolute. Perhaps it was meant to be cultivated, carefully, humbly, and with the awareness that the harvest is not ours to guarantee. So there is my second draft of uncertainty. I think I'm going to go back and redo it again. I want to really sharpen it up. I want to get it dialed. And once I do, later on down the road, 6 months or so, because this is the core of what I need to get into the world. This has been a burden on me for my entire life. And I don't quite have the words to describe the burden, but it has to do with, I mean, we all long for that certainty, right? When I say it's a shortcut, humans want the shortest path to feeling good. Think about it. I'm going to start by saying this, not my own quote, but from somebody else. It's easy to distinguish if a pleasure is illegitimate or legitimate. And here's how you do it. Pleasures that are earned beforehand are legitimate. Pleasures that cost after the fact are illegitimate. Let me explain. What's on top of my mind? Okay, so if I work hard, I have a goal in my life in the future. My actual goal here is by the time I turn 50 to be able to grab the rim on a basketball court, 10-foot rim, which I haven't done since 12th grade, more or less. Not that I couldn't at some points, but I'm definitely not able to now. So, will I be full of pleasure, satisfaction, and accomplishment if I do make that goal? Yes, but how do I get there? I must work hard between now and then. I must work on my legs and my muscles and not get hurt. That's the biggest thing. I'm trying not to get hurt. It's crazy how many things hurt just for no reason. As my knee starts to hurt. Anyway, so that's a legitimate pleasure because it was paid for beforehand. When you pay for it after the fact, i.e. sexually transmitted disease, the pleasure that you encountered is illegitimate. Now I'm trying to remember why I brought that point up, because I was like, oh, I have this statement that I can name, but I don't remember where we were coming from. That's why I write papers, because you have to put it all in order, and it doesn't go anywhere. If I have to just start talking, then it entirely hinges on whether I got enough sleep last night, which I did not. Had a hard time sleeping. Those fucking Oklahoma City Thunder. Or whether my brain has enough supplements in it at the time. Speaking of supplements. Today's episode is sponsored by Coca-Cola, which used to have cocaine in it. They're not really sponsoring us. Or me. But that high fructose corn syrup is fueling my brain. So yeah, I'm going to rewrite this and get it dialed. I can imagine revisiting it, publishing it. I always thought I was going to write a book off of it. And the name of the book was On Faith. And the first line was truth. Truth is that which is. God said, I am the truth. God is. And when Moses said, whom shall I tell the people sent me? And God said, I am. That part blows me away, and I don't have the exact words yet to describe the revelation I had when I realized that. Because truth stands on its own. That's why you can start with the first sentence, truth, period. Veritas. Veritas. That is Latin. think I want to learn Latin. In my other show, we're studying and learning fallacies. I printed up a nice chart of fallacies too. And a lot of them are in Latin. And if you go to law school, a lot of these concepts of argument and law are discussed with Latin, ergo. And it's a simple language, especially if you already know Spanish or any Romance language. Veritas. Anyway, here I am getting distracted again. I literally had no idea what I was talking about. Somebody create a software where I can just hit 2 buttons and it'll back me up 15. Oh, I remember I was talking to my wife about this. I have a solution. Here's what I have to do. I have to set my phone here and then record myself. Do you ever get these Ring notifications that pop up? I'd shut all my notifications off except for a couple. I recommend everyone does the same because it will turn you into a psychopath. Anyway, so I have one little bubble. My notification is on my texts or my phone calls. Is the little bubble that says 1 or 2. Emails, none of that shit. No notifications, no bubbles. Don't pop up on my screen. No. Except for the Ring app. And as I open my phone tonight, what do we have on the Ring app? Were those gunshots that I heard? For the longest time where I live, there are a lot of gunshots. Don't get me wrong. But even more so, there's these little jackarounds. I call them the Fast and the Furious fuck boys. Driving around in their little zippity-doo-dah speed racer cars. But they love the backfire, so they'll get their engine tweaked just so that they can let out 45-shot backfire. And it freaks these old people out, and they're like, I swear I heard automatic fire. It sounds like a war zone. Which it kind of does. But what's crazy is that multiple times in this area, I know gunshots. I have a lot of experience around gunshots. And I know when I hear them, and there are plenty. There's some that are kind of like, the biggest joke was on the Ring app, every night I was getting a notification. I would screenshot them, like multiple ones. Gunshots, and it's just in this area. And then we literally started a group that says fireworks or gunshots. Speaking of fireworks, I heard we went and smacked Iran today. We'll see how that turns out. This is not a show on politics, current events, or world, what do they call it? Foreign policy. It does seem that the administration of the United States has deviated from its original path of not fighting unnecessary wars. For some reason, somebody influenced them to fight this war. But we will discuss that and more on Eyes to See every Friday, more or less, weekly for politics. Man, I feel like I wanted to... so I literally got my phone out. So that's what I'll do. I just record myself. Boom, we could even send these as shorts. And if I forget where I'm at, I can stop it and go back. Unless you have another suggestion. Because I really do have a problem. I guess other people that do this, if they have a producer, they can keep track of what the hell you're talking about. Sometimes I'm on, not going to lie. But I did not get enough sleep last night. And have been nonstop busy all day. And still have a lot of shit to do. How many hours are we? 45 minutes. Are there any viewers? No. Are there any comments? No. Interesting. So I am basically just singing myself a lullaby, putting myself to sleep. Well, for those of you that watch this after the fact, thank you for joining me. I hope that this is, what's the word? I don't want to say comforting, but there's a lot of shit that I listen to on YouTube that's just kind of in the background. Like, I don't really pay attention to what they're saying. But every now and then something pops up. It's funny. It's insightful. It's whatever. Maybe that's what you're doing with me. I'm joining you in your late night rendezvous around your indoor garden, so to speak. Or even your outdoor work. Like, for instance, I washed my truck today for the first time in a while. Full on pressure sprayer in the driveway and everything. Headphones, listening to somebody. The structure of this show is going to be a little different, though. It's definitely not going anywhere if we don't have comments. Because I can't stay on track. But like I said, I will come to the table, read my paper. I'm going to get back to the table and work on my uncertainty paper. That's what I was talking about, how I wanted to make a book called On Faith. And I distinctly remember the day that I realized what it was. I feel like if I let the cat out of the bag, somebody's going to steal it. Oh, wait, nobody's watching. So if you are watching this after the fact, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet to the actual On Faith and Doubt channel, do that as well, because I think we only have 8 subscribers there. If you are seeing this on the Flock of Watch channel, just know that I got to put them all together because it's the only one I have any subs on, and we're trying to get to 10,000. And we're only at 8888. So subscribe to that. Subscribe to On Faith and Doubt, at On Faith and Doubt. And like and comment. But as far as the On Faith book, I was trying to actually, I need to revisit this and write it down. It was within the month or two after I was realizing this certainty thing. The uncertainty that I wrote on paper was years later, where I actually said, hey, I got time at this job. We don't really do anything. I got time today. I'm going to write these things. So I wrote that thing from memory of 7 years before, maybe. Five to 7 years before. And when I discovered this in my mind, truth is, it was after a particularly heavy time in my life where I couldn't stand, I wouldn't call it a mental break. I just call it transitioning into reality when you have a genius mind. Sometimes you slip up a little and the world gets a little too in your face, in one's face. So I had a particularly heavy acid trip one day. Just kidding, that's from a movie. But there was a period of time where for 6 months, I believe I didn't say a word because my brain was just fried. Literally. And I couldn't watch TV. I could not stand to watch TV because it was all manufactured bullshit. And I basically got baptized in absolute truth. In the sense that I'm not talking about the purest form of God. I'm talking about, well, think of it this way. There's several things or times in the Bible where the understanding is that no one can see God. Because if one was to see God, it would wipe you off existence. You can't comprehend that, right? So God reveals himself a little bit here, a little bit there, and it still blows people's away. Like Elisha, or I'm trying to think of who saw God and then was God the Father, this is. So plenty of people saw Jesus as God the Son. And he said, if you know me, you know my Father. If you've seen me, you've seen my Father. But that's different. Here's a perfect example. We could even send these. So the last 30 seconds. I'm trying to think of who saw God and then was. You guys don't have to hear this. I can put my headphone in, can I? So plenty of people saw Jesus as God the Son. And he said, if you know me, you know my Father. If you've seen me. It's actually before that. So I can put this in. There we go. Now we can chat while I figure this out. This is a good little practice session. Okay, we'll go back a minute. I'm going to go back a little farther. Oh, I was talking about not being fried. Couldn't stand to watch TV. Manufactured bullshit. That's what we're going with. Baptized in absolute truth. Okay, that's where I went wrong. So I'm saying I was baptized in absolute truth. There is the concept that if you see God in its entirety, it's terrifying because the human mind can't comprehend. I also like to think of absolute autonomy. I think a C.S. Lewis book describes absolute autonomy. If you don't know what autonomy is, it's basically self-rule. You're in charge of everything. You are, in essence, it's an absolute freedom, right? You're in charge of everything. So you're entirely free. And C.S. Lewis describes that as a state of being so isolated. Not only are you away from God, you're away from all mankind. You're literally isolated into your own freedom. And how free is that? It isn't. You're locked into madness. We're all mad. Very hard to explain why you're mad, even if you're not mad. Dark side of the moon? One thing I realize is I'm not recording myself, so if I forget where I was at, then I forgot where I was at. I was trying to get to an hour. We got about 6 minutes, 5 minutes left, so that might be a good stopping point, but let's see if I can get a few thoughts out before I get there. The idea of being baptized by absolute truth. It's this overwhelming rush of awareness that everything you think is not real. But that which is real is so much more real than any of this. There's only a few of you that know what I'm talking about. Because if you've ridden that snake, if you've gone down that path, then you know. At this point, I would like to highly recommend going to my Fluckawatts page and checking out 3 videos ago on my regular videos, a little skit that we call Jimmy Stewart's 5 Stages of Drinking. Jimmy Stewart with your hand to hold while riding the snake. If you want to laugh, go watch that now. But what I'm saying is, it's not hard to doubt reality. Drugs will do that to you. You're like, wow. The question is, can you organize it after it's been shattered? Can you take the reality, and there are a distinct separation between people whose reality has been shattered and those who have not ever seen that. I could basically spend a minute with a person and tell whether or not they've done that. Now, it doesn't have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be genius. It doesn't have to be madness. It doesn't have to be schizophrenia. It could easily be trauma, tragedy. You're walking home from work in Iran and your entire house gets bombed, and you know your kids and your wife and everything you have is in that house, and you're 100 yards away and it blows you back, and you take a little pebble to the nut sack and it hurts even more. I don't know why I threw that in. A little shrapnel to the family jewels. Add insult to injury. A little story of Job maybe. But yeah, he gets that will shatter somebody's. One thing that really there were 2 things that disturbed me. One that really did. Outside of the drug world. Allegedly. One was when one of my best friends calls me and says he's got cancer. And I was young. He was young. Firefighter. They get cancer. You got to not breathe that shit. Don't breathe that shit. It's gross. But for some reason, I'm like 30. I don't even think I had kids yet. But we had just lived free. I mean, you couldn't write a better life in terms of experience that we went through. Whether it's, anything, camping, snowboarding, wakeboarding, traveling, partying, all of it. We were at the top. And you just have that idea that you're going to live forever. And then your friend calls and says, I got cancer. I'm going to have to start treatment. And that was the first I ever dealt with that. I think I had a few deaths in the family, but nothing really. A couple friends died, acquaintances from high school and stuff, but that wasn't actually. And this guy and myself, we were 3 best friends, and the third one did die about 10 years before in a motorcycle wreck. So that was traumatic. It was probably more traumatic for him because he was in town. And I was actually in California on Memorial Weekend and enjoying the lake life or the river life out there in Havasu. And found out that our friend had gotten in a car wreck that weekend. Or a motorcycle wreck. And was fighting to stay alive for a couple days. And he was dead before I got back. That upset me, but it didn't break me. It broke his parents, as it should. But for some reason, this other friend, when he told me he got cancer, I was like, I'd never experienced that kind of mental weakness. It was like everything I ever worked Or it's just like that's when your beliefs are unexamined. And sometimes it takes instances like that to examine those beliefs. My belief was I'm invincible. I will live forever. I never get hurt. I've fought 1,000 people and only been knocked out like 32 times and only lost one tooth and only got hit in the head with a bat one time. You know, it was that idea. It was like we were invincible. I rode the motorcycles too. I stopped after my friend died. I had had enough at that point. But you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden your assumptions are gone. It's like, oh, wait, you could be dead in 6 months. Like it could be over. Like there's no more to life. And not only that, but the next 6 months are going to be a battle of chemotherapy and what. I don't know why I absorbed that so hard, but I literally drink, and I don't drink. I literally don't drink. I think I had 2 bottles of wine in the house, and I was like, I need something to calm this brain or whatever. And I proceeded to drink 2 bottles of wine and didn't faze me one bit. Might have been more. But I was distraught. And time heals all wounds. He went through treatment, came out on top, and is still alive to this day. Shout out. The next thing that got me was my own son had cancer. That would have been a handful of years after that. So that was what maybe prepped me for it. But there was one day where my world was shattered. There was several days where I was sad. Like when we realized, oh, wait, this 2-year-old, this little 2-year-old has cancer in his eyeballs. That's sad. The day that the doctor finally said, yeah, that is what it is. It is cancer. It is not whatever else you think it is. I got choked up and I had to take him out. I had to leave the office. I had to literally walk out with my son. And I was sad. I was broken. But I wasn't shattered. And then a few days later, we went to another doctor and we walked in and the doctor was like, listen, before we get started, I want you to know that what you're about to go through is the hardest thing you've ever done. But there's good news. There is a doctor that treats this in New York City. And I have an appointment for you on Tuesday. You need to get there by Monday, and that was a Friday. That sobered me up real quick. I don't know. It wasn't the hope of the idea that he was getting treatment. It was like 4 days ago, I thought everything was fine. My assumptions about the world were fine. I have 2 healthy kids. I got a job. I got a house. A dog. But what broke me was later. Or did I say that those broke me, but what shattered me was later. I just remember driving alone one day, back from out of town. I don't even remember where we were at in the treatment phase. He got some pretty heavy treatment for like a year. But there was one day where I literally, the realization came to me that I have to bury my own son. It was more like, where will I bury my son? I realized, hey, Dad, you now have to make the decision on where to bury your son. And that shattered me. It was that day that my last fuck went flying away like a butterfly. And since that day, I've given 0 fucks. To my detriment sometimes. And to the annoyance of YouTube, they tend to censor me a lot. But I don't care. Because when you get shattered like that, nothing else matters. And I told myself that day, because I knew where I was going to be buried. I think we talked about it in one of my previous shows, but since this is a different show, you get to hear it again. The land of my forefathers. Actually, in the previous show, we did talk about some of that. I have 15 generations of my name born or buried on the soil of the United States of America. Where I will be buried, if my son is buried there, we will have 7 generations in the same dirt. Yep, 7 generations in the same dirt. The same dirt that the family, my forefathers before me, raised plants on to make a living as dryland farmers in the heart of New Mexico. So I knew where I would be buried. I had buried my granny, my granddad. At that point, I had not buried my grandpa, but we just did. Some of his brothers, his dad, and I believe his dad's dad. So the problem is I live in Colorado, and my son was born in Colorado. And the other side of his family, his mom's, is all from Colorado. And I just realized, wait, I literally just lost my shit. I was like, you are not burying my son in these fucking cemeteries here. So God willing, my son will make it to a ripe old age. Although he does want to go to the military. And it seems like we're on pace for World War III. So, but son, if you're listening to this after the fact, you must come be laid to rest next to me. You were there when we buried my grandpa. And from dust you came, and to that dust you shall return. Because this town is fucking tainted. It is unclean. But the land of my forefathers is clean. It's rich, it's fertile. And that's where we will lay to rest. See, it's these kind of things that you need to think about in your life to bring yourself purpose. We talk about a worldview. I know where my destiny is. That's my destiny. I know where my past was, where I came from. Now, origin, meaning, morality, destiny has multiple meanings, like origin of everything. If God made everything, then where did God come from? Who made God? You know, there's those questions, but where did you come from? And the beauty of humanity is I don't care where you come from. Every day is a new day, an opportunity for greatness, a day to start something new. And I've seen it now having a grandchild, step-grandchild, but grandchild nonetheless. Fascinating. See, my children are 16 and 14, so hopefully we don't have any grandchildren that regard. But my beautiful wife has had her children young, which I think there's a huge value in having children young. Matter of fact, my dad was born to a 17-year-old mother that was married properly at 16 and 18. And having a young grandma who is still alive, if you're watching this, hi. Sorry about the bad words. In her 90s. We talked about it last time, didn't we? Like, she's the last one in my line of wisdom, of wise people. But understanding your place in this world, does it give you certainty? No. It gives you hope and faith. And that's what we're talking about. We're not on a quest for certainty. Because as we learned, we're finite beings and we cannot be certain of anything in its entirety. But we can be somewhat certain or pretty certain of things. All right, that's probably enough. Did we make it? Oh, 1 hour and 11 minutes. Whoops, I lost myself there for a minute. It's okay. We have no viewers and no comments. So this was an enjoyable fireside chat. And I did say that I was going to bring a tobacco pipe for this. And I never got around to it. So look for it next week. I'm going to write it down. Tomorrow I'm buying one. I'm literally going to a smoke shop to get my tobacco. You ever see that movie with Johnny Depp and some big Indian dude? It's like black and white, I think. Look it up. I don't remember anything about the movie except he was always asking him, "Do you have any tobacco? Do you have any tobacco?" And he would say, "I don't smoke." Well, I don't smoke either, but chewing tobacco is my thing. That and Coke, obviously. Not that kind. Allegedly. But yeah, I'm going to a smoke shop tomorrow. I'm going to get myself a nice little Sherlock Holmes tobacco pipe. I don't think I have had some, but I've never gotten into it. And get some tobacco. And in the vein of my what do you call it? I bet you I can show you here. Because we can click on that, share, and action. That is my what? What do you call that? Hello. Avatar. Little chat GPT. I said, take this picture of me and make it look like I'm smoking a tobacco pipe. I don't think it looks like me, but you be the judge. Anyway, that's the idea of this show, is we're just going to hang out, have a fireside chat. Fireside meaning not camping, but like we're rich and we have a nice fireplace and a couple of wonderful leather chairs and a bazillion books in the library and 20-foot ceilings, and that'll be enjoyable. I'm looking forward to it. I'll let you know. Stay with me on my other shows. Tomorrow I have pre-recorded one for the Denver Nuggets. The Little Nugget show is pre-recorded tomorrow. I did it earlier today because I'm not going to be here. And that's fine. If you're into the Nuggets, you'll know why. But the following day, we have another Little Nugget show at 11 p.m. because they're playing Utah. And that's what we do. 4 hours after the start of every Denver Nuggets game, you can come hang out with me. And you can talk shit. That's basically all you can do is comment, like, and subscribe. And It's free. You don't have a limited number of subscriptions, people. I've made it a new rule in my life. I've made it a new rule. Anytime I watch somebody's video, I make sure to subscribe. Because I know what it takes to make a video. I know what it takes to... Like, I don't care. It's not like you're limited in your subscriptions. You have 10 billion you can give out. So if you haven't given me one, how dare you? Like, I'm serious, bro. For some reason, when I started live streaming in January, I'd been watching my subscribers for like 3 years. Always stay the same. They stayed the same. 8,888 at one point. I might have got up to 8,890, but it was like 3/8, always 3/8, where it says 8.88K. It was always 8.88K. For 3 years, and I didn't make any movies or videos. No videos. I didn't do shit. And then I decided this year, for better or for worse, that I'm going to live stream every day of the year for 365 straight days. I might have bitten off more than I can chew, to be honest. Not going to lie. That's better. But it was important to me to break it up into multiple shows. And the general idea is that if the Nuggets are playing, which they are from January to hopefully June in the playoffs, this year it's not looking so hot unless they get their shit together. But then they're off for like 5 months, June. So maybe June, July, August, September, October. They start playing in October. So you get about 4 months of no games, 4 or 5 months of no games. And I have every intention of picking up the Little Nugget Show again next year, next season in October. And I know the more I do it, the better I'll get. So stay with me. You can say you were with me in the beginning, because there was a beginning. We got to 8888. Then I start live streaming, and I literally lost like 20-some subscribers. Because they saw me put up the Little Nugget Show or the AI thumbnails or whatever, and they got sad. And they decided to unsubscribe. Or YouTube did something. I don't know what the fuck. I was just thinking, there's literally nobody that's going to listen to the end of this one. But I know there is, because I am that guy. A lot of times I will stay with somebody and listen till the end. So if you yourself have made it to the end, how will we recognize you? You must leave a comment. But what comment would it be to say? We could put the end. No. How about the Doors? The Jim Morrison Doors of Perception. The band The Doors wrote a song called The End. This is the end. Boom, boom, boom. My only friend. The end. Oh, I think I'm going to listen to that tonight while I do my work. Actually, it brings back a lot of anxiety, to be honest. Anyway, comment Jim Morrison in the comments, and I will know who the real ones are. And then next time on the On Faith and Doubt show, 1 month from today, actually, what's the next month for me? March? March has 31, right? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So March has 31 days, and then April has 30. So my goal is to do this March 31st and April 30th. March 31st is the day before April Fool's. Actually, I was going to try and launch a website by then. Not for On Faith and Doubt, but that would be from my original show, which is The Grow Show Live with Flacco Watts. Come and hang out with like-minded home growers, cannabis cultivators from the great states around the world that have legalized the ability for a person to do what anyone on this fucking planet should have been able to do forever. And that's grow a plant. And then Friday, we'll have Eyes to See Policy and Podcast, Vision Beyond the Narrative. And hopefully they will develop into something, or they won't, and then I can just stop, because that's my goal. 365 days, and then we evaluate. Apparently, you don't need that much to monetize. I've already got the subscribers, so they demonetize my channel when it comes to cannabis. But if I can get these other shows going, I think they said I could make money if we got to a certain amount of watch time. I do get a lot of watch time for some reason, relative to the views. That might be saying something. If you have any advice, suggestions, leave that in the comments too. Why not? And come join me on Instagram at Flacco Watts. Oh, I think I'm procrastinating because I don't want to go to work. Oh no, I have to go to bed early. Shit. All right, good night, folks. Oh, one more thing. Feel free to use my essays. Copy them. I may actually rebroadcast just the essay part as a pre-recorded video and not a live stream. So if you need to steal it for school, lovely. Please do. I would like to undermine the education system every chance I can get because I think it's ridiculous. Like, seriously, you don't need school anymore. You don't need school anymore. Except for sports. All right, goodbye now. Go Nuggets.